NXT Takeover 2014, the review. But before we start that, why this show is so important to the future of professional wrestling, because NXT Takeover is something that began, of course, in 2014, but would carry on through the black and gold era of NXT all the way to 2021, something along that line, before we got NXT 2.0, and of course later into the carnation we've got today. But black and gold era NXT was off the back of this show, a 5-match card promoting your top stars, your top championships, your future top contenders, and of course we're going to see classics in future NXT takeovers. For example, Brooklyn, Bayley versus Sasha Banks. For example, New Orleans, Johnny Gargano versus Tommaso Ciampa. Johnny Gargano versus Andrade Cien Almas, if you remember back in the day. There was some top stuff. DIY versus Revival. We can go on and on with so many classic matches for the black and gold era NXT, how special it was. But it all began here. This was the first ever one. NXT, how important do you think this show is to the future of professional wrestling at this time period of 2014?
It's weird to say it, because like we've obviously watched this show, and the whole point of it was to watch it and review it. And I watched this show, and I got that exact feeling more towards the sort of Neville Tyson Kidd match, where I was like, this doesn't feel very special now, 10 years later, but from the standpoint watching this in 2014, this is trying to break the mold of what WWE was putting out. And you got to remember at the time, there's no AEW. TNA is it's a shell of itself at this point. There's not that many other places to go and watch professional wrestling. And obviously with Triple H at the helm, this is trying to sort of introduce the world to a new style of pro wrestling. And you can see it in this show, because there's lots of moments like that where, do you know what I mean? There's loads of near falls in like the Sami Zayn match and the main event, and the fact that you've got Natalya and Charlotte doing a very mat-based match is different for a woman's match. Do you know what I mean? So you can see the points in this pay-per-view where they're trying to break the mold and the norm of what WWE would normally broadcast. So yeah, I can agree with you totally. This is definitely trying to be something else. And obviously this is the beginning of black and gold, which is like in the last 30 years of me watching professional wrestling, the black and gold era of NXT is my favorite era of pro wrestling.
And it's a lot of people's favorite as well. For a lot of wrestling fans that were struggling through the 2010s of what to watch, NXT takeovers were what brought people in. A 5-match card, occasionally 6, but usually a 5-match card. Something very common with current WWE now. Triple H is top of the helm with those B pay-per-views, of course, as well. So this actually just fits into the narrative, not just NXT, but all a professional wrestling when you look at it. And yeah, I totally agree. The fact is, with this show, this is a starting base to grow and see what it would become. I mean, the performance, the athletes would only surpass each level of what we're seeing here. But this was breaking boundaries at that time period. And of course, it was a special show when you look at some of the matches. There's the quality of the matches you had at that time period, of course. The likes you said, the Adrian Neville Tyson Kidd being the main event for the NXT Championship. You had Sami Zayn versus Tyler Breeze for the #1 contendership. Of course, the Women's Championship was vacated at that point. It was Charlotte Flair versus Natalya, Ric Flair being in Charlotte's corner, and of course Bret Hart being in Natalya's corner. We did have the Ascension versus Kalisto El Local. Looking forward to talk about El Local later, and as well, of course, we had the opener with Adam Rose versus Camacho, of course, Tamaloga, who of course is part of the Bloodline currently in WWE. And shout out to Eric Douglas and Ed Fries who are with us in the chat already, and to everyone that is watching live, feel free to get involved if you've seen this show previously. We're keeping things strictly NXT Takeover 2014 on this stream today. But overall thoughts of the show then?
It hasn't aged well. Like, to me, this is a bang average pay-per-view. Not even, probably wouldn't, I think bang average is probably a little bit too generous. Like, it's just like, it doesn't, like, you take the first 2 matches out, it doesn't, let me rephrase that. Aside from the first 2 matches, which feel very, the other 3 matches are just like slightly above, probably okay, and it's not through fault of their own. Like I said a minute ago, it's trying to be a different product, and you can see it. I mean, I was watching it back, and I was doing my star ratings for all the matches. I was like, I don't have a lot of great things to say about the show, but then I don't have a lot of bad things to say about the show either. It's just a very bang average takeover, and it's what I expect really for like one of the first like 2 takeovers. I think this is because I think this is the first. This is the first pay-per-view, really, isn't it? Oh, I don't know, because this is still on a Thursday, isn't it? So this might have still been on the same actual on NXT like normal TV time.
I think around the time period, I think they might have done it on a separate day. I am trying to think if it was a Tuesday or a Wednesday. I know Ed Fries is with us in the chat. He may give us the answer to that.
This was on a Thursday.
This was on a Thursday. Maybe this was NXT daytime then as well at that point, obviously. But it's interesting because obviously you had NXT Arrival, of course. That was the launch of the WWE Network, of course, itself a few months earlier, which we've covered on the channel as well. So it's kind of going with this 10-year anniversary theme with the NXT show. So that's what we're looking to try and do with Black and Gold as they come around. So there's 2 more of them later this year that we'll be covering on this channel as well. But yeah, like you said there, I mean, obviously it's an interesting time period, and for me, I will say I'm perhaps a bit more generous. I'll probably be a bit more kinder. I think the last 3 matches of the show are decent enough. I'm looking forward to discussing them in a bit of depth and stuff. The first 2 we are probably going to breeze through and fairly quickly as well. So let's not waste any time. Let's get into it, shall we? Because we're 6 minutes into the stream. I'm sure people are wanting to know our thoughts on some of the matches. So Adam Rose, who remembers Adam Rose taking on Camacho? I think the most important thing when it comes to Adam Rose is how many Rosebuds do you all remember? I mean, we got to see quite a few of them come with Adam Rose from outside through to the ringside. The likes of Becky Lynch was there, Carmella, we saw Braun Strowman. Basically, your favourite wrestler today and Simon Gotch were all there, part of the Rosebuds in 2014.
Cameron Grimes as well.
Absolutely. It's amazing. It's amazing. The lineup, you see all those people there running around ringside, partying with Adam Rose. Pretty much, Adam Rose, you could argue, had the best group in WWE history because so many stars were made out of Rosebuds, just not himself.
Yeah, dude, I actually really liked Adam Rose. Like, I thought, like, because he was, well, I believe he was South African, wasn't he?
I don't know if that was just his Leo Kruger gimmick or what. If that was his genuine all round, I don't know.
I was gonna say, I think he genuinely is from like South Africa, and it's like he was very different to what anything I'd ever seen. And like the party style character, it's trying to be essentially what Tyler Breeze was, what Shawn Michaels was, but I don't know. I just liked Adam Rose for some reason. The music was banging. He's just one of them guys that unfortunately just fell victim to shoddy booking on the main roster, and it's a shame because like I really had high hopes for the guy. And when he came up and they run on the promos for him on Raw, I was really excited to see Adam Rose, but yeah, unfortunately, this is probably the best it got for him.
Unfortunately so, yes, because I had the same buzz, and then they brought in the bunny, and the bunny was not my target audience. I was not feeling anything with the bunny. I didn't enjoy watching the bunny. Didn't like the heel run with the bunny and Adam Rose. But yeah, it was a complicated.
The bunny got an action figure as well was a joke.
Absolutely indeed. But to be fair, you could actually say this match a bit of a joke as well. Of course, Camacho, part of the bloodline in WWE now, not so high thought of NXT at this point. Because, I mean, Adam Rose kind of uses mind games. I think it's probably a good way to put it early on in the match here. Obviously, with Camacho being carried as well to get out of a move, giving a bit of a cheeky wink, using a way of shaking his bum to get out of a move as well. It was a bit of an interesting way to go. But Camacho had enough, took advantage of a forearm. To say Camacho's offense was basic is kind. A couple of rest holds, a big boot, a leg drop is about as good as it got from Camacho, but Adam Rose got back into the match with a spine buster, then hits the party foul for the win, which of course for those keeping score in modern terms is basically the Blood Force Charm, the same finisher as LA Knight. And of course this match, a short one if we're going to be honest, going through the books. This match was only 5 minutes and 8 seconds long. Your thoughts of the opening match, Adam Rose versus Camacho?
Apart from the list of names I had down as Rosebuds, the one plus I had from this match was there was a beautiful double arm underhook, the suplex from Camacho to Adam Rose, and I was like, that's kind of it, really. This was a very, very TV match. There's not really a lot to go on, really. I mean, isn't this like Camacho's last appearance as well in WWE before he leaves the company, I think, and then I think that's the blessing in disguise, really, because he had a better run in New Japan. But yeah, just a very TV standard match for me.
Was also part of a group in TNA as well with Eli Drake and of course Drew Galloway. Not a lot, not long after this, I do believe. But yeah, I mean, for me, like you said, there's a stand team match. It's also a showcase match. The Camacho is the spare part. It's all about trying to get Adam Rose over in the quickest time possible. Yeah. And like you say, he's shot putted to the main roster of Raw and SmackDown later that year. He doesn't really get a big run because it was Leo Kruger for a long time in NXT beforehand, but not much of a match, if I'm going to be honest. I'm going to be kind of a bit, dare I say, a bit harsh on the rating for this one. I'm going to give this a 1 star for me. I just think it's, it's probably a 4 star for the music for Adam Rose, but a 1 star in the match quality for me.
I gave it my bog standard match rating quality, TV match rating quality of 2 stars.
2 stars.
That is probably too generous for a 5-minute match. But dude, I mean, I can't really complain. They had a match. There was a pinfall. We saw something decent. I mean, there was no flaws, no botches, just 2 stars from me.
Absolutely, indeed, they're fantastic stuff. Well, I'll tell you that we do like to give Dave Meltzer's ratings as well, just so we can compare ours to his and see if we're thinking on the same wavelength or not. And it turns out that he is giving this a 1 1/4 star rating.
What? I'm gonna actually rethink my logic now. My bog standard TV match is gonna go to 1 star, because you're right. Because I've looked at how I've rated the rest of this show, and I think 2 stars is too generous for this. So I'm going to change it from this point forward. My bog standard TV quality match is a 1 star, and that's what I'm going to go with.
1 star, here it is then. Well, I'll tell you what, that is our thoughts of Adam Rose and Camacho opening the show. But we're going to go into the comments, and shout out to Zayn, by the way, who said to us that Adam Rose is from Johannesburg, South Africa. So yes, he is from South Africa, not just under the Leo Kruger gimmick. And of course, Ed Fries has got a couple of comments for us now. Says Tamangaloa, defeated by a party boy. Wouldn't be a good look in 2024. Probably wasn't a great look in 2014, to be honest with you either. But all the greatness of the lineage of the Rosebuds, they certainly wanted to do great things. Adam Rose, sadly not. But Ed Fries said he's given a lot of thoughts on this show. I do know Ed on his channel as well. Our local establishment has been covering NXT shows as well at a quicker rate than what we'll be doing as well. So make sure if you want to keep it up to date on his channel as well, to keep up to date with NXT takeovers. But bog standard should always be 3 stars, as that is the average. There we go. That's Ed's take on it. You're going with 1. We usually go with 2. 2 is usually our bog standard, but for me, I think it's a bit below the average match for me. It's a bit below par.
Yeah, like I said, from the how I judge the rest of the things, I've got to knock it, I think, because I'm not very generous with the rest of the show. So I'm going to just say 1 from me.
That's fair enough indeed. Well, we're going to move backstage in the meantime as well. Sami Zayn talked about his match against Cesaro at a rival. Said it's done a lot for him. He felt empty though in defeat, but you need to learn how to lose before you know how to win. He said his opponent Tyler Breeze, it's not all about the looks, it's how it's done in the ring. He will become the #1 contender for the NXT Championship. And one minor touch I really liked after this, Brandy Rhodes in the ring as the ring announcer announcing Tyler Breeze has entered the building. A very nice play off what they used to do with Shawn Michaels back in the 90s on commentary when Shawn Michaels had left the building. So a little bit of early sort of Shawn Michaels links to NXT, which it's quite funny as it goes in full circle in 2024. Shawn Michaels now is the head of creative over there. We move on in the meantime, then we'll begin talking about our next match, which of course is for the NXT Tag Team Championships, the Ascension defeating Kalisto and El Local. First question, El Local, I'm desperate to talk about him. Do you know who El Local was?
Ricardo Rodriguez.
Yes.
I Googled it myself because I was like, that kind of looks like an overweight Sin Cara. And I'm like, that can't be right, surely. And then I typed in Google, El Local. And all of a sudden this picture popped up and I was like, whoa, this is post on Alberto Del Rio, I presume, right? Because dude, oh my god, this match is horrific. Like, it is bad. Like, I mean, dude, there's not really much to catch up on. Like, in fact, I'll tell you what. Let me do the match summary for this one, right? The Ascension basically dominate for the entirety of this match. They absolutely dominate Kalisto. They managed to get in a small amount of offense at some points. They try to both do double dives through the ropes. The Ascension take them down. We then get to that ultimate point where Kalisto is looking for that hot tag. He tags in what is it? El Local, you know, it's an El Local talent that obviously El Loco talent tries to do a rebound off the middle rope and almost falls flat on his face, and then the Ascension destroy him and picked up the win for. This was embarrassing. Like, my one comment I put was Kalisto does a hot tag which falls on deaf ears. He'd have been better off staying in the ring by himself than tagging. This was bad. Like, don't get me wrong, I like the Ascension. If anything, made these two look really strong, really great. And Kalisto had a great show, and surprisingly for a small guy, gets 2-on-1. But my God, El Local competitor, Jesus Christ, he was horrific. It was honestly the worst thing I've seen in a long while. Like, everything he did, he just looked like he's almost like he'd never wrestled before. Like, he was trying to do all these luchador moves, and like his footwork was just horrific.
It wasn't great. I'm not gonna lie to you. I had the same sort of when he came to the springboard off the ropes, like you said, the rebound. Then it just went a bit wrong to begin with. The moonsault wasn't so bad. A couple of seconds later, so I'll give that as a pass. You know, it's like he entered the water. Do you know what I mean? Like, but it could have been worse. It could have been worse. It could have been wrong. Better.
He obviously didn't have the greatest of luchador skills, but I was like looking at him, and I was just, dude, he looks like an overweight Sin Cara. What's going on? Like, he's mad, like, or it would look like he just stolen one of Kalisto's masks and was trying to be like the Nacho Libre version of Kalisto. Do you know what I mean? So yeah, it was very, very strange, man. But he obviously can't do what most luchadors can do. So I was like, why are they doing it? Why have they got him doing moonsaults, rebounds, attempting dives through the rope? I mean, there was even, like, don't get me wrong, some of his stuff, like he manages to evade some attacks, and he like lands and does a forward roll to evade it, but it still looks sloppy. And I'm like, how you're trying to present this guy as a luchador just does not work at all. This is horrific booking.
It's not good. And the thing is, you mentioned Sin Cara. Sin Cara does replace El Local, not into the long, too distant future. They do become future NXT Tag Team Champions. It's the Lucha Dragons, if you remember, Kalisto and Sin Cara. So there is better times ahead. But yeah, this was not the strongest showing from anybody here. I will give a shout out to Kalisto when he was thrown into the ropes, when he was able to kick, I believe, Connor away and actually slam Victor's head into the hardest part of the ring to try and get to the hot tag was probably my highlight of the match. But yeah, it was the fall of man that did give the Ascension the win. But yeah, all in all, for me, not the best showing. I have to agree with you. This was 6 minutes and 17 seconds, and I mean, I've seen Meltzer's rating is 1.25 star. I'm willing to go lower. I'm going to go back down to. I'm going to go to the 1 star again for me.
I'm going to go through. I'm going to go through 3/4 of a star. Like, this is like the other three are fine, but El Local just really drags this match down for me. And I presume it was meant to be a squash match, but like, what I don't understand the booking why you'd have Kalisto as the guy in there, taking that, build into this hot tag, and then the hot tag comes to nothing and El Loco just gets destroyed and pinned. I was like, it was very weird booking. Like, you wouldn't build a hot tag to fail, and the crowd were just like not as enthusiastic about it either. Like, I'm pretty sure at some point one of them, they were chanting, "This is awesome," and I'm like, "Are you watching the same show as me?" Because I don't think you are.
To be fair, I'm quite happy Kalisto had about 5 minutes of the match compared to El Local. That's just my personal opinion. I wouldn't have wanted to trade it. So, yes, Ed Fry says was a play on Elvis Presley. Says notable prick, Alberto Del Rio's personal ring announcer. Very well said. And also that Rodriguez was doing commentary for the Spanish team on the main roster at this point as well. We had to do something while Del Rio was away. But I do miss the days of Ricardo Rodriguez and the 2012 Royal Rumble coming out in the banger car.
That was great, yeah. But that's what he was. That's what he should have been, was a comedy character. Unfortunately, they tried to book him like a serious wrestler. It didn't pay off.
It was indeed. Zane asking, I can answer this in one question. Was this the best takeover of all time? No. No. There's plenty better. But it's a starting point. Sid actually says it's a bad pay-per-view and never watch it again. I don't know if I'm going to go that far with it, because it's going to have a turning point coming for me in a couple of minutes. It gets a lot better, in my opinion, starting with the next match. Just these first two matches are probably ones to forget. But we move on in the meantime. And, we have a video package of Tyler Breeze. And I've got to say, one of my favorite parts of the show here, it's all about the pretty. Breeze actually asked about a selfie with Alexa Bliss. And Alexa goes, goes, yeah. And he says, no, not with you. Take a picture of me. That for me, I was like, I did not know this segment existed. I forgot Alexa Bliss was in and around NXT at this point. I just thought, brilliant. I was really into that. Sami Zayn is a loser and I'm a success. Tyler Breeze, not just a pretty face. And have you seen all of that of Breeze can do? For me, I actually really enjoyed the video package of Tyler Breeze here. The Zoolander type version of his character for me, I always thought was awesome. And I've got to say, loved Tyler Breeze's entrance. And look, I'm giving a lot of praise to Breeze. I will for Sami Zayn as well. He was always a highlight when it comes to NXT. And no surprises that this was a number one contenders match for the NXT Championship at this time period. And Tyler Breeze actually picked up the victory. Going to go into a bit of detail of the match. Just some of my favorite spots, if you will, going in then towards the finish, because it's quite a lengthy match, this one. But Sammy's sitting on the top rope. He's thrown over the top to the floor, basically because he was swung by his leg by Tyler Breeze. Breeze then bulldogs Sami Zayn's face into the second turnbuckle. We see Sami tricks Breeze over to the top rope. Then that way Sami can do a moonsault to the floor by sitting on the top rope on the way down. Thought it was a very unique way to go and do that moonsault to the floor. He hits a crossbody from the top rope, but only gets a 2 count. Sami hits his blue thunderbomb again, only for a 2 count. Breeze pulls Zayn's legs first out of the corner and turns it into a power bomb. One of my favorite spots of the match as well. There was almost a ref bump in the corner, but Zayn did stop himself from going into the referee. Breeze then goes for a schoolboy. He's showing he's willing to win the match anyway. There was points earlier in this match he was happy to win by count out. Feels that Zayn wanted to get the job done properly. Breeze just wanted to be number one contender. There's a fantastic super kick from Breeze as well. Again, a 2 count at this point. Sami goes for a unique powerbomb, but let's be honest, this one doesn't really come off as good as it could do. But Breeze does reverse this into a small package. But Zayn does turn this around a couple of seconds later, going for what looks to be a suplex into a powerbomb attempt. Looked pretty cool to me. Zayn then goes for a haluva kick. Tyler Breeze rolls out, so Sami does a swanton dive over the top rope to the floor. Then goes for the haluva kick a second time. At this time, though, Tyler ducks and looks to protect his face by putting his hands up. Sami, of course, then misses the haluva kick with the leg going over the top rope, and seemingly a bit of a low blow, if you will, but not obvious enough for the referee to call it disqualification. Tyler Breeze hits his beauty shot, which of course is a spinning heel kick for the pinfall victory. This match in length in time was 15 minutes and 54 seconds, and I'm not going to lie to you, I actually enjoyed this match.
This was the first problem I had with the night, was that when you said to me we're going to be doing this pay-per-view, and I looked at the card and I was like, I have nothing stands out to me on this card. And then, like you said, with that promo package, Tyler Breeze, they did a really good job with Tyler Breeze in NXT. Like, they built him to the point where, do you know what I mean? He was credible and like people could take him seriously. Another one that falls victim to main roster, and Sami Zayn, like 10 years ago, was still playing the plucky underdog that, just to try and overcome all these obstacles. And I was like, do you know what? This might actually not be too bad. And then it starts, and the first 10 minutes, this is not their fault, but like, I honestly, the first sort of 10 minutes, I was like, nothing stands out to me. This is kind of just a normal match. Like, nothing, like, I'm waiting for that final third where it picks up. And it does. It gets really good in the final third. Aside from the botch, where, they obviously tried to do a counter of a suplex or something, and it went slightly wrong. And, like, unfortunately, you got to mark them down for it because it is an error. But apart from that, I was bored for the first 2/3 because I was like, this is supposed to be the new way of enjoying wrestling, and I was like, 10 years later, this is bang average now. This is very bang average, and I find obviously I'm so used to modern wrestling now and what we get nowadays that watching this, like, don't get me wrong, 2014, this was probably great. There's loads of great near falls, but I really struggled with this. It's my own fault, really, because like I'm so used to current and modern wrestling that I struggled with it. But like I said, the final third, it picks up really well. And the counter to the haluva kick as well, I thought was unique. It's like, you don't see people that often. Normally they just duck out of the way, but the fact that Tyler drops, and I presume that he runs his gentleman bits into the top turnbuckle, which is where I think the groin shot comes from. And I was like, that's pretty unique. I don't think I've ever actually seen anyone else do that kind of reversal for that move. I was like, okay, that's pretty good, but I really struggled to get into this pay-per-view, and it's a shame because like I said, 10 years ago, I would have watched this and gone, do you know what? This was a really great match. Really struggled, man.
Do you think, because I'm going to play a bit devil's advocate here now, just because of the fact I'm giving your experience of what you're watching, does this match suffer for you because it's third on the card? Would this been better, say this been the opening match for you? Because like you say, like that's maybe it took time to get into it, but like you've watched a couple of matches you've not enjoyed, so it kind of sets a tone for the evening. Or is it still the case that no, we have just moved on 10 years later and this was maybe a better quality 10 years ago, but it's just average now?
I think it's a bit of both. Well, you're right. It could be the fact if this had been in the opening match, it might have, maybe it would have set this a higher standard for the show. But then, by God, those second two matches would have really sucked. But then I just think like we've seen these people grow in the last 10 years. Obviously, Tyler didn't go on to do much apart from being like he's probably best known for this role or being part of like the Fashion Police or whoever it was with Fandango. I forget the name now. And obviously, it's a shame because of watching this. This is like he's really good, and his character work in this is really good. Like I didn't realize that Tyler was the bigger deal in NXT than Sami. Do you know what I mean? Like you're so one-sided of how Sami's career has gone and how he's such a big star nowadays that at this point Tyler is the bigger star. But I don't know, like. I don't know if it kind of be a case of that you just look at the card and you look who's on the card, and then your brain just goes into what have they done in the last 10 years. And like I said, with Tyler Breeze, unfortunately, he's not done anything. In fact, he doesn't even wrestle now. He plays video games with Xavier Woods on Up, Down, Down, I believe, and that's probably about it. Sure, that's what you want to do, but it's kind of like if you go to the later NXTs and you look at some of the matches we get later on, and I don't know, maybe it's just a case of that certain takeovers later on, the people that are in them have just left a bigger footprint in NXT. Do you know what I mean? Like Tyler, I don't think he ever won anything in NXT, did he? I don't think he ever wins a single title because of what? They don't introduce the North American title for about another, 5 or 6 years after this. Well, no, probably about 3 or 4 years after it. So it's kind of the world title or the NXT title is the only thing to go for, and he doesn't win it. And it's kind of like everyone else after this, they introduced the North American title. These people go on to have killer matches like your Ciampas, your Garganos. And maybe they're just a victim of, like I said, just maybe a victim of being the beginning. Like, it's the same, I love the Ultimate Warrior, but you go back and watch his stuff from 30 years ago, it's trash. Yeah. You have to admit it's trash. Not that Tyler Breeze is bad, but it's just like, I'm so accustomed to the modern product now. And for what I class as this was an okay match with some really good moments. You know what I mean? It could be worse. It could be an Ultimate Warrior from WrestleMania 6 fighting Hulk Hogan, where he's like, I don't even want to get into that. That's a different story. We'll just move on from there. But do you know what I mean? Warrior's not a great wrestler, and he's like my Mount Rushmore because he's the guy that got me into wrestling, and he's not that good. I'm trying to not be harsh. Do you know what I mean?
I can understand you. I totally get it. Look, to be fair, maybe that's something that would have been great back then if they had the North American Championship back in the early days, because Tyler Breeze could have been someone that could have benefited. Like you said, he would have maybe had a run with that. He would have been someone that definitely would have been content to have a run with that championship, and it maybe just would have given him something a bit extra when he did get his call-up eventually around Survivor Series time in 2015. But it didn't quite work out for Tyler, unfortunately, in WWE. But I did get a question, would you bring him back to WWE? I wouldn't be against him coming back at this point, to be honest, but I think you'd have to be in the right group, the right gimmick. Like, for example, if he did something with Xavier Woods, I think could be quite fun on WWE TV. If he came back to NXT, could be fun for the period, but I don't know what he would necessarily fully bring to the table. I think if he was to go back to WWE, the thing I'd actually enjoy him being in the position most would actually be GM, since the fact he does the up, down, down, meant to be the top GM. I think that'd be probably the best position I'd like to see him in.
The GM is a good shout, but if I was gonna, if that's not an option, I would bring him back to NXT and have him as like the gatekeeper, like how Cassius Ohno used to be. But Cassius Ohno, you're going up to the main roster, and have Tyler Breeze in that kind of, and he could still do the Prince Pretty, but even like more of a grizzled Prince Pretty, because obviously guys think they're the hottest when they're in their 20s, but we all know once you hit your 40s, that's when you hit your male physical peak. Do you know what I mean? Tyler Breeze in his 40s, you can give him a goatee, give him some black and grey hair. Do you know what I mean? Make him look grizzled, man. Yeah, I reckon he did really well in NXT today.
Absolutely. The phones are a lot bigger though these days. You want to take a selfie, you might actually probably have a selfie stick.
Mine
But
folds.
yeah, well, there you go. You're not too bad on it. What would be your star rating then for this match then?
I gave it a 3. I think that's what's criminal about it. I would have probably given this more back in the day, but I went with a 3.
Do you know what's the fun part is actually I feel you've actually really come down this match, but yet a 3-star rating was not what I expected you to say. I thought for a minute I was like, must be thinking about 2.5 max for this one.
No, that's what I said. I mean, the final third and the near falls are great in this match, and like I said, there is some great stuff, but it's like don't get me wrong, there's still 2 more matches to go, and like I have other points obviously with them, but I was like, I can't be. And that's if I'd have given the first 2 matches a 2 and then given this a 3, I'd have really felt like I'd undermarked this, which is why I knocked the first 2 down. Because I think that if I'd given the other 2 a 2, I'd be thinking, what, Sami Zayn and Tyler Breeze aren't that much good than the Ascension versus Kalisto and Ricardo Rodriguez. That's no way, man.
No, I understand that. Well, I've gone for a 3.25, which is not a lot higher than you, but yeah, I turn around and say I actually felt like it was a decent match. I pretty much enjoyed it. And like you said, particularly the final third, was tempted to go to the 3.5. The only thing that made me did not do that was just the moment where kind of they had a minor botch, if you want, just that one move that went a little bit wrong. Yeah. But we'll go into what Dave Meltzer's rating was, and the match time was 15 minutes and 54 seconds, and Dave Meltzer's gone for a 3.5-star rating, so slightly more generous than you and I. There we go. When we got a segment, which to be fair, I think we just breeze over, was Lana and Rusev. It was in the Russian phase, of course, for Rusev. Of course, he's been called to Raw and SmackDown. He was down for appreciation. They showed Putin's face on the screen as well on the Tron. This is where Mojo Rawley interrupts and reminds us we're in the USA. He wants to come down and stick the flag straight up his Putin. But of course, he runs straight into Rusev and gets a kick and pretty much gets destroyed, including being put in the camel clutch on 2 occasions, one of them being on the ramp. So poor Mojo, he might be hyped, but I think he didn't stay hyped on this particular occasion. But we'll move on in the meantime.
I was just going to say, it's your typical Rocky IV WWE moment where it's USA versus foreign star. And do you know what? The fact that they haven't edited out the Putin thing is a shocker. Like I thought that would be something they would delete from the video, but I digress. We move on.
Absolutely. They wanted heel heat clearly, and they got it at the time. For me, there's just not a lot for me to add of any value to this. It's very like 1980s WWE, and for me, I think by that point it's a bit outdated in the time period. And yeah, I just was never a fan of this. I preferred when they just had, Rusev being the Bulgarian brute that he is. But so we move on in the meantime to the video package for Charlotte Flair and Natalya. I quite enjoyed this video package actually. We see there, so basically they're going to go for the NXT Women's Championship. The title was currently vacated because Paige won it at Arrival. She was then called up after WrestleMania. She won the Divas Championship on the opening night against AJ Lee. We all remember it. And of course, from that point, JBL said, well, you're on Raw and SmackDown now, so you're going to be giving me that NXT Women's Championship back. We're not going to be letting you go up there with that. So we're going to need to crown a champion down here. So we had the tournament. And the beautiful thing about this video package, we got to see the semi-final, how they finished. So Charlotte Flair beat Alexa Bliss. And we saw Natalya beat Sasha Banks, which is quite fun to see Bliss and Banks get cameo matches on this show as well. Sasha Banks, by the way, was in the dark match on this show, just out of interest, was actually in a losing effort to Bayley. Funnily enough, they would have many more matches that would be televised later on NXT specials. But of course, both share the family names as well, the pressure and stuff like that. They share their pressures, how they feel about it. Of course, this is in their blood as well for Charlotte and Natalya. We hear the praise as well from Rick and Bret, basically saying that both of their family members, they'll be in their corners and that they're going to win. And Natalya wants Charlotte to prove that she's a Flair. And Charlotte said if she wins, then Flairs will need their own Flair wing in the Hall of Fame. As I say, I think it was a fairly decent video package. What were your thoughts?
My problem is that I feel like I've seen this 1,000 times. Charlotte Flair and Natalya. That was my problem with it. This is obviously at that point where Charlotte's trying to not be a Flair, but is a Flair. Like, this is obviously the moment where she starts acknowledging that she is really Ric Flair's daughter. And it's kind of like, and they're playing off against, obviously, that history of the 2 names. It was good for what it was. Just looking at it now, though, it seems like this whole tournament was a bit of a like, the longest match before this final is 5 minutes.
Yes,
it was not. There's 6 other matches, and you've got 4 minutes, 3.5, 3, 4, 4, and 5. And it's like it's really hard to get invested in a tournament where you've given them less than half an hour. I'd like, don't get me wrong, obviously TV time back then, I think it was like an hour an episode. So again, it's probably really hard to do. But you're trying to change the future of women's wrestling, and you're giving them less than 30 minutes. And it was really hard for me to be just be like, I'm into this. I want to see this. And at the time, obviously, this probably is a fresh rivalry, but 10 years later, I just feel like I've seen this match 1,000 times.
Probably in the same format, because only recently, I think it was a year ago, we did this same match with the same legends in the corners for a different show. Of course, it was done on the main roster later on. So we have technically seen this before, but I would argue this match is better than that one that we did previously. So there is at least something to say positively out of it. But pretty much this is a game of one-upsmanship and a lot of, I suppose... like a lot of submission holds, a lot of reversals, showing that who's the better between Flair and Natalya, which, who's got it in their blood better. But of course, it does lead to a bit of physicality from both, and both tensions rise high as well, both slapping each other early on in the match. But the emphasis of the figure 4 headlock, I think, deserves a mention from William Regal when that was done from Charlotte Flair to Natty, driving her head into the mat as well. And Natalya sends Flair over the top, outside, onto the apron, kind of classic what we used to see with Ric Flair. I just want to give a shout out to it with Charlotte sort of going over and then sort of landing on her feet. Just gives me those retro vibes. Flair, though, would quickly get revenge, pulling Natty's leg from the apron to land on the floor. Flair misses a moonsault from the top rope. We see then Natty apply the sharpshooter. Basically, after a bit of stress, it seemed from early doors from Charlotte Flair, she does seem to roll through and then actually apply her figure 4. Thought it was a good transition. They roll then around the ring, trying to reverse it a number of times, and eventually Charlotte rolls to the floor, which is my favorite spot of this match because the figure 4 still applied with Natty being tied up in the ropes. I just thought a lot of pressure applied there. Reminded me of the old times of the days when Bret Hart used to do it at the corner turnbuckle. Just felt a bit fresh seeing it with the middle rope as well. But of course, we then see Flair then apply the sharpshooter, insult to injury, some might say. Natty then counters though, but Flair counters again and hits her natural selection, and she wins the NXT Women's Championship. There was hugs and respect with both competitors and the legends after the match. Your thoughts then with Charlotte Flair versus Natalya, and trust me to not put the graphic up as well.
There's something you just said that sums this up for me. The whole Charlotte doing the figure 4 hanging off the apron reminds you of Bret Hart, and that's exactly what this match was. This, to me, was a Bret Hart Ric Flair match, just done with 2 women.
Yes.
Not a bad thing, and I get they're trying to break the mold. I'm probably not the biggest mat-based wrestler fan, and it's like I'm not gonna discredit it because it was great mat-based wrestling. It's probably just not my cup of tea. But it honestly felt like these were just 2 women trying to recreate a Bret Hart Ric Flair match. I'm pleased. I'm not trying to be horrible. It just felt like. It's not something we get enough starters. When does Charlotte Flair ever miss a moonsault nowadays? Charlotte Flair always hits the moonsault, so that just shows our times have changed as well. But yeah, and again, to play off it, it's a match I feel like I've seen 1,000 times. Very good, just unfortunately not my cup of tea, I'm going to be honest.
That's fair. I think that's fair. For me, a mat-based match, I am quite more into that probably than you. I would say it is my cup of tea. Sometimes I'd even have it with a biscuit, if I'm being honest. But at the same time, I do feel to myself that it was a decent story played between the 2 ladies throughout the match, I would say. I felt at one point when we got the slaps between, I thought that this was going to turn from that into a different direction. And I thought it would become a lot more personal. And that was something I was hoping to get more of in the match. And that was something that I think we were taken away because they went back to rest holds, back to, submissions. And like you say, it's this technical style and this sort of mat-based kind of game between both of them in the match. Like you say, it kind of is a Ric Flair, Bret Hart style match. But I would say say that it is a positive thing because, like you said, for women's wrestling back then, you mentioned the whole tournament, for example, got half an hour, for example, before the final, and the final itself it gets 16 minutes and 54 seconds, which is, you know, clearly easily it's triple the length of any match we'd had in the tournament previous, and it really is probably triple the length, maybe even 4 times the length of a match you would probably get on a Raw and a SmackDown at that time period as well. So I think credit the fact that it is putting things in the right direction for the women's division. Of course, they did mention as well here Charlotte Flair. It felt like a moment that you could see someone that could be dominating for years to come, and 10 years later, still is.
And like I said, this was again this is another point to show that where this show is trying to change how wrestling is viewed, and the fact that, like you said, they get 16-minute match, which is probably like 8 times longer than what they would have got on the main roster. So, yeah, again, I'm probably just being harsh just because it's not my thing, but it still had everything there. It still had story. It still had wrestling. Like, there wasn't really, from what I saw, any mistakes or botches. So I can't complain. Essentially, I was bored, and I think that's just me because that's it. The product's changed so much in 10 years, and to watch what the women are doing now, and they're trying to break the mold 10 years ago. It's so hard to go back and watch it.
So I can understand that. I can understand this from the personal point of view. But like I said, for me, I'm into the mat game. I quite enjoy that style of wrestling. But I also look at this, and like you said there, we mentioned about how the difference is from a Raw and a SmackDown to NXT in this time period. And we mentioned on the last one with Arrival, the Paige and Emma match, how that sparked into a women's revolution. This helps do that again because, you know, this breaks forward then for all future takeovers. And you think of the likes of the champions that we've seen on takeovers, the likes of Asuka, for example, Shayna Baszler, Kairi Sane, Rhea Ripley, you know, Sasha Banks, Bayley, Charlotte Flair, Becky Lynch. You know, they've all been there. And I mean, Becky Lynch wasn't actually a champion until actually the current NXT days. But hey, we're giving her a name reference anyway. She had some great matches in that time period.
She was a rosebud.
She was a rosebud indeed. She was kicking off this show in a match that was a 1-star rating for us. But of course, her part was not 1-star. It was definitely 4-star or above. But still, anyway, but we're going off topic. This was a groundbreaking moment. It helped push and break the barriers for women's wrestling and helped it push it forward into the right direction. So for me, it's going to get a healthy star rating for that reason. In fact, I'm going to kick it off. I'm going to say that this one for me gets a 3.5-star rating from me.
2 3/4 for me. Like I said, probably just personal preference, but yeah, 2 3/4.
It's still not a bad rating because it's above half, if we're being honest. So it's not that bad. But let's go to Dave Meltzer's rating. I'll tell you, he doesn't seem to mind the mat game looking at it. 4-star rating. In fact, this is his match of the night.
Wow. Okay. Fair enough. Fair enough.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely indeed. C Nation Dog in the House of us. Thank you, City, for joining us. People say NXT 2015 was when NXT got popular, but I feel like 2014 should be included too. I absolutely agree. 2014 should be included. I think the spark is probably from Brooklyn in 2015. I think that's where the glory days start for a lot of people. But 2014 had some high moments as well. We're talking Adrian Neville as the NXT champion. You're talking Sami Zayn in there. We mentioned Tyler Breeze earlier on. Tyson Kidd does stick around, but you get the likes of Kevin Owens, Finn Balor, Hideo Itami all kicking in 2014. So it's definitely a bright time, definitely in NXT in 2014 as well. CD goes on to say Natalya has went to NXT so much while being on the main roster. She has quite a few spells, including in 2024. Sometimes the more things change, the more they stay the same. Wouldn't you agree, NXT Steve?
Yeah, she has her place on the card. Like, she's that legend now. She's that one that's brought in to do a job as and when needed. And even 10 years ago, Natalya has her place on the roster. Don't get me wrong, this isn't a good night for the Hart family in general, but you can always rely on Natalya to do a job.
Absolutely indeed. Spoilers for the main event, ladies and gentlemen. We've got Adrian Neville defeating Tyson Kidd to retain the NXT Championship, but there was a video package beforehand, which is a pretty decent video package, in my opinion. We get to see babyface Neville. God, he looks so young compared to the bastard that we see these days. And he just seems so happy to be NXT champion. He feels unstoppable as NXT champion. Each challenger offers something different. You're so naive, Neville, at this point. But there's a lot of similarities to Tyson Kidd. He said Tyson will not be able to use him as a springboard to get back to Raw and SmackDown because Tyson Kidd had been on the shelf for a year, and he said he was going to come back to become NXT champion. He's going to use it as a springboard to get back to the glory days. This match, pretty much, if you've seen the Spider-Man meme where both of them are looking at one another doing the same thing, this is pretty much the idea of this match, the ideology that a lot of these guys have similarities, do the same things. So basically, it's a feeling out process at the beginning of the match. Like I say, a lot of similarities between the two with the headlocks and stuff like that with one another. They're pretty much each other's equal. Tyson, though, does get a little bit cheeky with a pat on the head to Neville. He's young after all. Frustration takes over Tyson, though, as he levels Neville to take advantage. Tyson then lands a swanton over the top rope to the floor with ease, in my opinion. I thought Tyson was very good with that. Similar mindset again with both men hitting the crossbody into one another. Neville then lands a double offense, first with a drop kick into the corner onto Tyson's face while his own hanging upside down, and a second one with a springboard forearm from the apron. Neville then goes for a dive, but Tyson counters with a kick. Of course, that dive was to go through the rope, just for those keeping score. We see then Tyson then going for a sunset flip powerbomb, but then Neville lands on his feet. It was actually pretty awesome the way it looked as well. The facial reaction from Tyson was awesome as well. Tyson then gets up, runs, then gets put into a push-up powerbomb from Neville for a 2 count. We then see Neville jump to the second rope, looking to do a rebound, a springboard, whatever you will, but Tyson meets him up there and actually lands a Russian leg sweep. Again, a really cool spot in the match. Suplex then over the top rope from Neville actually takes Tyson Kidd with him. Both go crashing to the floor. We then see the Tyson Kidd land the sharpshooter for a second time and then actually put into the dungeon lock. But William Regal says, "Is that the dungeon lock?" He's not quite got it on properly, though. But Neville still gets to the ropes to break it in the end. And then Tyson Kidd is on the top rope. Neville meets him on the top. There hits a hurricanrana, really impressive spot. And then Tyson Kidd goes crashing to the other side of the ring. Neville goes to the top rope and then lands a red arrow to win and retain their NXT Championship. For me, this was my match of the night. I really enjoyed this match between these two.
Yeah. Again, I'm going to sound like a complete douche, right? But the problem I had with this was I don't actually have a problem with it. It did nothing to stand out from anything else on the card. There's a couple of good spots, like you said, the powerbomb reversal, the Russian leg sweep off the middle rope. It's great, but again, it's kind of common stuff. It's like super kicks nowadays. Like Tyler Breeze's super kick to Sami Zayn during their match was fantastic. Like, but nowadays it's just so commonplace. It's like half the stuff I was watching was like, see in every like cruiserweight match. Do you know what I mean? There's nothing special that stands out for me. But I'm trying to be like, I'm trying to not be a douche about it and just be like, just trying to appreciate what it is. It's not very often someone makes Tyson Kidd look like the biggest guy in the room, for starters, which was always a shocker. Because I didn't realize how small Adrian Neville is, because it likes Tyson Kidd being the biggest guy. That's a shocker. 2 guys, similar skill set, trying to wrestle each other. It's a very common cliche that we see nowadays. Like we've seen it hundreds of times since, with people like Will Ospreay, Ricochet, for example, 2 guys with the same moveset that wrestled each other, but they like, I don't know, like, though my head is so stuck in 2024 when it tries to separate myself from 2014 and try and find like this is still a really good match, and there is still some really good spots, but I don't know what it is about this show. There's just nothing. Maybe I don't know. Maybe I'd already like pre-cursed myself, pre-tortured myself by looking at the card and going, like, because when you said to me, and I'm like an Adrian Neville versus Tyson Kidd, and I'm like, well, I know Adrian Neville can go, and it's like I can't remember for the life of me what Tyson Kidd. I know he can go, but I can't remember like half of his moveset, what he can do. But it's not a name that 10 years later it just goes, I bet that's a killer match. Do you know what I mean? Like we've watched, how many times we've watched a rewind and we go, I'd like the other day when we did the retro, and I'm like, Perfect. What was it? Perfect and Bret Hart in the King of the Ring, was it? And it was like, that sounds, you know what you're getting with the Bret Hart Mr. Perfect match. Tyson Kidd, Adrian Neville, I've got no idea what I'm getting. And it kind of worries me, because if it was something good, I think I'd know about it. But it was just okay. And like I said, I'm torturing myself really, but I make myself look like a bigger douche than what I actually am. I'm just sounding horrible if I'm honest. Like, I've really struggled with this show. Like, I still rated this fairly well. This isn't my match of the night, but I still gave it 3 stars. I gave it on par with the Sami Zayn match because I thought it was okay, but it's such a common match that we get nowadays. It's really hard for me to sit and go, wow, that broke the mold of wrestling. But it did 10 years ago.
But the thing is, I'm shocked you didn't enjoy this match as much as I thought you would, because you're really into cruiserweight wrestling to start off with. Yeah. And obviously, the 2 smaller dudes in the main event. Of course, I know,
Neville, yeah.
And it's like, for me, I will say I'm a little bit biased when it comes to Tyson Kidd. I used to really enjoy his work back in the day. I was someone that was used to root for him back in the ECW days. Of course, the WWE version of ECW, not the proper ECW. And of course, when he got with the Hart Dynasty, and I always used to rave for Tyson, wanting to do well. So when he came to NXT at this point, I was like, he's been gone for a long time. We'll see how it go. But I actually remember this match 10 years ago. I remember still where I was when I watched this, and I remember thinking, that's a bloody good match, especially when some of the stuff we were watching around the time. And there were some great matches around that period. Mentioned like Daniel Bryan, WrestleMania 30, for example, doing great stuff. But I just remember sitting there going, these two had a real chance to showcase themselves for 20 minutes. Like, Tyson Kidd would never get that on Raw and SmackDown. It just made me appreciate his talents even more. And it just goes to show, all the matches, like, for example, you say you enjoy in 2024, Tyson Kidd is producing probably half of them.
Yeah. Absolutely, but I think my problem with Tyson Kidd is the fact that I don't think, apart from this match, I can't turn around and honestly tell you a singles match he's had. I remember Tyson Kidd as the tag team wrestler with Cesaro, the Hart Foundation. That's all I remember Tyson Kidd doing. I don't remember anything. Like, he may have had, like you said, he was in the WWE iteration of ECW, but I'm like, I don't remember nothing he did, and And I think that's the other thing. Like I said, when you look at that card and you go Tyson Kidd versus Neville, well, it might be all right, but it's like I don't know what I'm going off of. And it was kind of like, again, I'm horribly judging it on what the stuff we get today, but it was just essentially a commonplace match that we get today.
I don't know. Maybe I've got my rose tinted glasses on. That's all I'm going to say. Then
I think I'm in one today. If I'm honest, mate, I think it's me just being horrible for some reason, and I ain't got a clue. Like, it's not bad. Like I said, I gave it 3 stars. It just like there was no shock factor in it. Like, nothing really kind of like the reversal from the powerbomb when Neville stood up. See it so many times nowadays, and it's kind of like. You're worn out of these things because we see them so common today. Like, my God, can we not just have some like some old-fashioned tie-ups and some test of strengths? Like, that's stuff I haven't seen in 20 years. But like instead, I'm getting flips and kicks and super kicks and super 360 counters, and I'm like, yeah, sure, we're seeing them every week now. It's kind of like, yeah.
Yeah, to be fair, we're spoiled in 2024 with what we get. To be fair, if anything, we're given too much. Maybe it should, like you say, hold back a little bit more. But look, I'm going to be probably seen very generous with my star. I'm giving a 4 for this. I think it was a very good match. I really enjoyed it from start to finish. I would tell people to go and watch this match, and I think it's a good one. I do. The only thing that is a knock on this match is I don't genuinely believe in my right mind that Kidd is ever winning it, but it's still a very good, technically sound match from start to finish. And I think still sometimes you can be left to believe in the moment, even if you feel like it's not going to happen.
Do you know what? Now you say that, I think that could actually be part of it as well. Like, if you look at this card, you're like, Tyson Kidd ain't winning, Neville's retaining. You look at Charlotte's winning because Natalya is in there to do a job for Charlotte to make her look like $1 million. Ascension and never won in a million years, losing them tag team titles to Kalisto and Ricardo Rodriguez. And it's like, honestly, I think the biggest shock of me was the number 1 contenders. Like I said, I didn't realize how big of a star Tyler Breeze was. And like for Sami to lose that, bearing in mind we just had him on a rival where I think it didn't end in a DQ with Cesaro because of Rusev's interference or something. I believe that's how the match finishes on Arrival.
No, it was a clean finish, that one. It was Cesaro winning, though. The Rusev interference was the Tyler Breeze and Xavier Woods match that never got started.
That's why I'm getting confused, because he interferes in the Tyler Breeze match. But yeah, like Sami Zayn just playing the underdog, and I'm like, I'm waiting for Sami Zayn's momentum to just skyrocket. And like I said, Tyler Breeze getting the win was, say, the biggest shock factor for me on this card.
Absolutely. Well, I can tell you this match was 20 minutes and 55 seconds. And I can tell you Dave Meltzer's rating was 3.5 stars. So more harsh than me, but more generous than you. That's what we can say with that one. Let's go to a few comments that we've got CD in house. He's given us a few comments, which is a blessing for doing so. Thank you, CD. It says Tyson Kidd, Natalya could have had the star power, could have been a power couple holding both of the championships at the same time. You'd have loved to have seen it, but it never happened, unfortunately. But it's okay for WWE to listen to the fans, but fans can be fickle, so WWE shouldn't listen to the fans all the time.
I'm one of them, unfortunately, today for some reason. I don't know why. I'm very fickle today.
Well, he actually agrees with you, CD. Says he remembers Tyson Kidd as a tag team wrestler too, but doesn't remember him challenging for the NXT Championship. So there we go. NXT can use lower card main wrestlers in the good old days, and I guess lower card main wrestlers going to NXT is nothing new. And no, it's still being done today. In fact, I've seen there's a lot of rumors today that Tegan Knox could be the next one. Eventually could be dropping to NXT for a bit of a steam, which would be great for her, I think, to get some TV time. I've seen a few comments on this stream about Ethan Page. We are looking to perhaps do a separate recording to get that out there for everyone. So, yeah, it's good stuff. That's your little spoiler for that now. But anyway, I would like to get your final thoughts of the show before we wrap things up, because we're near the hour mark on this one. So let's go with the OMG moment of the night.
Ricardo Rodriguez being El Local, for me, that was like, what is this about? So that's my OMG moment. And then that or Tyler Breeze winning, because if I'd have watched this show during that time period, I'd have said Sami Zayn was winning.
Yeah, I think for the time period, I think for match wise, Tyler Breeze has to have this moment. But I'm actually going to give it to the Rosebuds because of how many people I recognize through there. Like I said, all your favorite wrestlers. And Simon Gotch was there as well. Going to do that joke twice. Your match of the night?
Sami Zayn versus Tyler Breeze. The result, the finish, the final third, I thought was great. And yeah, where Sami Zayn goes from here onwards is great. And like I said, the shocking Tyler Breeze being such a big star was great. That was great to see.
Absolutely. For me, it would be Adrian Neville versus Tyson Kidd. Entrance of the night, I'm going to say it's got to be Tyler Breeze.
Adam Rose, we're talking about all the Rosebuds and then that banging music. I didn't like that.
It is a banging music. It is, to be fair, but I'm going to go for Tyler Breeze. I want to switch up. I want to be a little bit different. Plus, I was a fan of selfie stick action back in the day. Do you know what I mean? I enjoyed a selfie back then. It was 10 years ago. I was younger. I was more into that scene back then. MVP of the night.
William Regal. Thought he was great on commentary.
Yeah, William Regal, to be fair. William Regal's an interesting one when it comes to commentary. We don't really discuss commentary with this one. Obviously, Tom Phillips, Byron Saxton, William Regal. William Regal's either like the best person ever. Some of the stuff he comes out with, his facials as well, like when Rusev and Lana were leaving was hilarious. But he also could just, I don't know, he could waffle on some stuff as well on commentary. It's not fully his bag.
There's a moment when Rusev enters and he turns around and he says something along the lines of, I can't see anything going wrong with this kid in his future. And I was like, yeah, Rusev gets released a couple of years later.
Yeah.
Jinx. Commentator's jinx, I think they call that.
Absolutely, a commentator's jinx indeed. And William Regal was a great shout for it, but I think I'm going to go into the wrestling ones. I'm going to say Tyson Kidd, just purely because I noticed that when this match started, Adrian Neville was the full fan favorite. By the end of the match, some fans had turned and were cheering for Tyson Kidd. So they've made a believer out of some people on that night that he could actually go and do something more. Never actually happened.
Yeah.
He made believers on that night.
Yeah, I mean, if I was to pick a wrestler, I'd probably have to agree with you, especially like the little heel bit towards the end when he refused to shake Neville's hand and he walks out. I was like, Tyson Kidd healing it up. Okay, fair enough. Like, just apart from the rest of the show, I just don't think anyone else sort of. I mean, no one surprised me as much as that, really.
Yeah, I would agree. So, a score out of 10, your final rating for NXT Takeover, the first ever one back in 2014.
I'm going to say a 6. It's okay. Take the first 2 matches aside, it's watchable, the rest of it.
I think that's a fair rating. I'll go slightly higher because I feel I'm slightly kinder about this show. So I'll go for a 6.5, I think, out of 10. I think that if you take the first 2 matches are a bulk of the problem with it. I think the last 3 matches are more than watchable and enjoyable. Particularly though, I think Yeah, I mean, the last 3 matches are all enjoyable. I think that's definitely worth watching. I do think there is a couple of other segments though that could be cut from this show. I think that this show would have been perfect had it been an hour and a half length instead of a 2 hour length show. That would be my minor critique I would make from it. But that's pretty much all from us. Let's get a last comment in from CD before we wrap things up. Says I feel that Neville was the first megastar of NXT at this time period. He was the longest reigning NXT champion and first of NXT Tag Team Champion, first ever 2-time NXT Tag Team Champion. You are correct indeed. Neville was a big time player in the early days of NXT, and of course it would pave the way for many more stars that we're seeing top NXT champions as well, the likes of Shinsuke Nakamura, Sami Zayn, Kevin Owens, Bobby Roode, Drew McIntyre, just to name a few, would go on to follow in the footsteps, because this was a very important show when you look back at it, because we would get the black and gold era. NXT takeovers were going for 36 shows over a period, and there would be many more great ones along the way. And what I can tell you is that over the coming years, because it's years, we will try and match the 10-year anniversary to each takeover as it comes along. So the next one's in September, but of course SCW will return before that, and the next one will be Money in the Bank themed. NXT Steve, thank you for joining. It's been great having you on.
Dude, always a pleasure, man. Sorry, I've been a bit of a Grinch today, or a grouch, or whatever you want to call me, man. Just one of them ones today, unfortunately. But it was a good show, trust me.
It was a good show indeed. Enjoy it. Look up yourselves. We'll see you for the next video.